There was a tale I used to hear from my mother before bedtime and until I was 6 years old. It was the story of a baby that was born on the same day death made its way through a small village. Every time she told me that story, she'd start crying. Soon after, she'd leave my room and lock herself for the next few days. I guess that's why I got used to being in charge of our little house on the outskirts of the village. I was also used to false empathy. An abandoned woman with a cursed child was all the villagers spoke about whenever I was out and about buying groceries for supper. The memories of my father weren't too many. He was gone by the time I was 6. He wasn't too fond of me to start with. You know, being born during the worst tempest in the past 20 years was already unacceptable and a sign that I was damned. On top of that, he believed it wasn't him, but a devil that left my mother pregnant. He could not accept a creature with inhuman abilities of premonitory dreams as his own offspring. Even worse, I was born a girl. He hated me to the point of refusing to call me by my name. He'd wander around the house, half sober, calling me, "Hey you," and asking me to pour him another glass of cheap wine. One night, I dreamed he was going to leave us. I remember running to the kitchen and telling my mother about it with happy tears down my cheeks. "You truly are my worst sin, Tempest," she said. After my father, of course, left, my mother stopped talking to me. She wouldn't even see me in the eye. There were times when she'd rather go to bed on an empty stomach than sharing a single meal with me. She also never spoke my name again. As I grew into my teen years, my mother's tears stopped. She even stopped caring if I was around when she sat down by the window, waiting for that jerk to come back. I secretly hoped that if he ever did, he would find his own tomb. Going to the market once in a while was always interesting. Each time, I wondered what was I going to encounter. Maybe another lady will look at me mercifully and add an extra potato to my basket. Or perhaps another dirty man would want to buy me a decent dinner for a night with him. To be honest, I wasn't sure what was worse. One winter night, as I was walking back home from the village, I heard a noise. I stopped and looked around trying to figure out where it came from. It could be anything. Maybe another girl left to die in solitude. That was very common recently. Girls accused of sorcery or prostitution were always the unluckiest ones. That was enough reason for me to always walk around with a kitchen knife hidden under my dress. I would fight before being left to die like an animal. I ordered my feet to move, to keep walking before I too froze to death. However, the sound was so mesmerizing, I let it lead me into the woods. The cracking of ice beneath my feet was a distant sound. I left my basket full of vegetables behind and followed the sound. The wind carried a mysterious scent. Anise, maybe mixed with cedar. I wasn't an expert in herbs. I just knew it smelled like magic. At the opposite side of the path that would take me home, I found a little girl. She was sitting in front of a campfire, her arms wrapped around her knees. She must have been cold, wearing a black dress in the middle of the night. As I approached, the scent became stronger, and the magical power so intense they exploded against my senses. As soon as she noticed me, she turned around. I felt a shiver down my spine that made my knees weak. She was me, at 8 years old. Her eye sockets were 2 puddles of blood. Her lips sewed shut, the black thread ripping her skin while she cried out painfully. "Tempest!" she screamed, her screeching voice piercing my eardrum. I covered my ears, but I could still hear her. "Tempest!" she called again. My name. It was my name she was calling, and it never sounded so sad, so full of agony. It wasn't me reacting consciously, but my body led by an impulse. I found myself lunging at her and taking her into my arms. I wanted her to stop. She was my pain, my hate in flesh and bone. We landed so close to the campfire that I almost burned my black hair. When I looked down, the girl was gone. "It is time, my darling," said a voice as 3 feminine silhouettes appeared from the flames. My lips opened on their own and started chanting. "Blessed be mine soul and the ground beneath my feet. Blessed be the moon goddess, for I am her child. Let the new beginnings lead me into the magic land. Let the soul of the departed be mine guardian and guide. Blessed be the power of a spell sent to the sky, and falling back into my palms by a crystal light. The power of my prayer unleashed the magic in my soul. It was painful, and yet beautiful. The sounds of the forest became clearer, the cold sharper as the moon continued whispering in my ear. When I came back to my senses, the fire was out. Dark burned logs were cold against the snow. The sound of my beautiful name still lingering, floating in the air with powerful energy. With light feet, I returned home. My mother was waiting. "Where have you been? You are worse than a stray cat. You're such an evil child," she cursed. Her words collided against the magic protecting my skin, daggers crashing against steel. I looked at her, and her face went white, as if she had seen the devil reflected in my eyes. "I knew this day would come. I knew hell will burn down this sacred home," she blurted out and called him, the man that once forgot he had a woman and a child. The door opened behind me. His face was engraved in my nightmares and memories. His hair was now stained by gray strands. His eyes, the same dark blue. A fierce ocean, a dark drowning grave. "Take her!" he exclaimed, pointing at me with an accusing finger. I spread my arms, letting the moonlight touch the palms of my hands. The power of the night bathing me entirely. I wanted to kill him, to bury him with my own 2 hands. 2 of the 4 men that were with my father approached me with blades and ropes. I reached for the knife secured around my thigh. They were scared, I realized. So afraid of my beautiful energy and power, it made me smile. My hair was now flying free with the soft waves of magic. "Witch!" they cried. Their hands locked around my wrists and their daggers sank into my skin. The pain was like the touch of a feather over my chest and womb. A few seconds later, the 2 other men approached, both of them holding torches they put upon me. The fire burned me, my skin bursting out in painful blisters that made me scream. I waved my knife aimlessly, loathing at my parents for bringing me into such a pitiful life. But I couldn't fight them anymore. I was tired. The 4 men held me down so hard, I felt my ribs breaking when my body slammed to the floor under their heavy weight. They tore my clothes apart, searching for the devil's mark. They found nothing. Soon, I was tied to a wooden pole. The whole village gathered around. The show was about to begin. In the bonfire beside me, another young girl started to burn. Her crying made me become conscious of my own wounds. I looked at the many families congregated as if going to church, smiles decorating their faces, pleased to see the evil vanishing away into the flames. My feet started to burn hot, my undergown turning rapidly into ashes. I felt the fire devouring me, melting my skin as a dripping candle. "This soul can never die!" I screamed, looking up to a sky that had forgotten me one more time. I opened my eyes into the darkness of my room. The alarm ringing in the distance, my heart pounding rapidly against my chest. My skin was burning hot. I looked at my hands. My wrists were covered in red marks, as if they had been tied by ropes. My memory was hazy. All I could remember was the tempest of burning under the fire in the sky.